I did my presentation on the Forest Haven Asylum in Laurel, Maryland. This asylum has been reported in the top 10 worst cases of institutional abuse in the United States history. Another interesting fact about this asylum is that as you walk into the administration building, you will see a plaque that says, "Yet while I live, do not let me live in vain." When the asylum opened in 1925, it was just a small farm colony that taught adults and children with intellectual disabilities useful skills. Their routine included exercise and recreation. There were plenty of athletic fields and basketball courts. There was also a lot of green space between the buildings to play. There were around 20-some buildings on this campus. Some of the 20-some buildings were the Central Administration Building, the chapel, dorms, power plants, laundry, and classrooms. When a patient would die, they'd be sent down to the morgue before going to an unmarked grave on the premises. As the years went by, the death toll rose. The conditions of Forest Haven had declined. The patients then began getting buried on the banks of the Paxton River. Forest Hill started slowly going downhill. The mental asylum started turning into an institution that went from confining those with mental health problems to experimenting on them. The individuals were treated more like prisoners than patients. None of the patients were getting the treatment they needed. The patients were choking on their feeding tubes and dying of aspiration pneumonia, which is a condition where food enters the respiratory system after eating all the times in their beds. In 1976, families started raising lawsuits on the abuse at the asylum. There was all kinds of abuse. There were many more lawsuits against Forest Haven that finally the government started moving the patients to other places. Fall of 1991, the rest of the residents were loaded into vans and left the premises. A lot was left behind. Everyone was more focused on getting patients out of the Forest Haven that they did not focus on the buildings or what was inside the buildings. Forest Haven was then left behind. So the three people that really impacted the stop to insane asylums were Dorothy Dix, Penelope Pennell, and William Took, and then deinstitutionalized was kind of the end of the insane asylum movement. So Dorothy Dix publicly supported psychiatric hospitals. She fought for state-supported care and was an advocate for outpatient instead of lifetime stay. Penelope Pennell was the founder of Moral Treatment. He was a doctor at an asylum, and he thought patients should be treated like people instead of animals, and he was known to unchain patients that had been chained up for a long time. Then William Took was very into humanitarianism and being nice to people and treating people with respect and treating them like people instead of animals, kind of like Penelope. And so he pushed for a lot of laws and movements and acts that helped so that patients would be treated better. And deinstitutionalization got all the patients that were in the insane asylums out and put them in psychiatric hospitals, group homes. Some of them even went out on the streets with the help of medication, but they all got help and got better instead of worse in the insane asylums.